DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one framework, one philosophy, one mindset, one approach. We wrote books on the subject, and we have this daily masterclass that we bring to you at least once every 24 hours. All of this is all under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is what it really means to know your worth. Now, everybody has heard this phrase before, but today we're going to talk about what it really means. It does not mean what you think it means. So understand, I'm going to give you a fresh perspective on this knowing your worth thing, even though everybody might think they know what it means. We're going to talk about the way that you think it means and what it really means. Now, before I get into that, let me tell you that I have a text message line where you can text me right now or anytime while you're listening to this or after, and let me know on what you had a chance to think about it. What's the best insight you got from today's class? Is there a different perspective that you're going to take on the way you approach your own work and your own life based on what you heard here today? If you have a question or comment or concern about anything you heard here today, or a question about anything else, doesn't have to be specifically about something I said in this episode, text me at 305-384-6894. That is my direct text number, where you'll not only be able to engage with me, but then once you're in my texting community, you'll receive my daily motivation text, which I send out every morning to everybody in my text community. Again, the number 305-384-6894. Now, this topic, what it really means to know your worth. Now, again, you have heard this phrase before. Maybe you have even said this phrase. I hear people say this phrase when they're talking about who they're going to deal with relationship-wise. I hear people talk about this when they're talking about their job or their career and making the money that they want to make. I hear people talking about this when they're just talking about how other people are treating them and how they're being responded to and dealt with based on, again, relationships and other people. People like to throw this phrase around, but they only use it really in one type of way. Today we're going to talk about the other way to use this, and understand that it's not that the way that you may know about is necessarily wrong. It's just that the way you know about is only half the story. So we got to make sure you get the whole story, because here at Work on Your Game, for those who may be new or relatively new, or you don't know about me that well, understand that here at Work on Your Game, I'm always going to give you the full game. And the full game is not just the part that is most convenient for you. It's not just the part that you already know about. It's not just the part that you are most comfortable with, but it's the entire game. And there may be some parts of it that you might not be so comfortable with right now, but you'll be happy that somebody put you onto the game. I'm gonna be the one putting you onto the game, so that when these aspects of the game come up, now you have a different way of looking at it, and you can actually maximize the ROI from your game, your actual skill and your ability in the game, being all of life, your career, your business, etc. So let's get into it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is what it really means to know your worth. The first thing you have to understand about knowing your worth is that you must invest in yourself at the same level that you believe you are worth. This is the other side of the game that very few people ever talk about. I don't know if I can, as much personal development as I have taken in the form of books and courses that I go to, or courses that I take, events that I've gone to, people that I've invested in, I cannot recall any one person. Maybe it has been said, but I can't recall anybody being really explicit about it or saying it more than once or emphasizing enough that knowing your worth is just as much about what you put into yourself as what you expect to receive from the outside world. There was this girl that I knew once that I was dating, and she was telling me about how she was, in the past, she had dated some athlete, and I asked her, well, what caused you to stop messing with this guy, this athlete that she had been dating? And she said, well, I realized my worth. I figured out what my worth was, and what she was insinuating was that this guy that she had been with, he was not seeing her worth at the level that she was now seeing her worth. Therefore, she decided to break off the relationship. And this is the way, even though you might not have used it in that specific way, but this is the way most of us use this phrase of knowing our worth. Because we all know, or at least we think we know, what our worth is when it's time for us to receive. You hear athletes talking about this. Well, I just want to be paid fair market value, or I just want to be treated fairly, or I know my worth. Athletes talk about this when their contract is up. It's time for them to get paid. So now they want to get a certain amount of money because they believe they are worth that amount. Or again, in relationships, I can't be with this guy because he doesn't give me what I need. I need somebody who's actually going to give me what I need. We all talk about knowing our worth when it's time for us to receive. My challenge to you is, do you consider that same worth when it is time for you to invest? If you believe that you're worth $1 million, then okay, that means when it's time for you to get paid, somebody has to give you $1 million. Now my question is, when it's time for you to invest in yourself, are you thinking along those same lines? Are you thinking, damn, I'm worth $1 million, so I better make it some very strong investments in myself so I can protect this $1 million investment that is known as me? Do you think about it that way? Or do you try to go cheap on the investing, but you want to go heavy on the receiving? This is the mistake that I see many people making. A lot of people say that they're worth X, or they have some idea of what their worth is going to be when it's time for them to get, but when it's time for them to give, when it's time for you to put something into yourself to make sure that that investment is protected, people want to get cheap. All of a sudden, everybody wants to count their pennies. All of a sudden, you want to shop at Walmart when it's time to invest in yourself. And when it's time for you to receive, you want to go to in Miami here, we got the Design District. You got the Tom Ford store, you got the Givenchy store, you got the Louboutin store, you got every high-end luxury fashion brand you can think of. They all clustered within a 5-block radius. You want to shop there when it's time for you to receive, but when it's time for you to invest in yourself, or let's say if somebody else is paying, you want to go to the Design District, but when it's time for you to pay and invest in yourself, now you want to go to Costco and Walmart. Are you investing in yourself at the same level that you see yourself as worth? Are you doing that, or are you not? Or are you going cheap on yourself? Now, you know the answer to this one without having to think too hard. That's the challenge that I'm giving you right here. If you are worth X amount, are you making that same calculation when it's time for you to invest in yourself? In other words, when it's time for you to invest in yourself, are you saying, you know what? Let me get the best that's out there. Let me make sure that I'm going to someone who's actually going to give me all of my money's worth, and I'm going to really invest in myself because I know how much I'm worth. I got to make sure I'm putting that into me. Are you looking at yourself and saying, I got to make sure I'm putting the same quality of material into me to make sure that I stay at my highest level that I'm expecting other people to want to give to me when it's time for me to, when I got my hand out and it's time for me to receive? We've heard, any of you who follows basketball, you've probably heard about how LeBron James, a guy who's been the best player in basketball for many years, a large chunk of his career, he invests $1 million a year into his body. Now, LeBron James, the athlete, he gets paid a lot more than that, at least according to what you can Google in terms of his player salary and in terms of what he makes off the court and his endorsements and whatever other business ventures that he has. But this is what you have to understand. LeBron has to have the mentality of being willing to invest at that level in himself, putting all that money into himself, before he gets to the point that he's so good that he can get all of that ROI back. Now, who knows which came first with him specifically? He got a big contract when he first came into the NBA because he was blessed with a certain amount of talent and ability. The guy hit the genetic lottery. He's obviously a very gifted athlete, but at the same time, he's not the first gifted athlete to come through the NBA or the NFL or baseball or any other sport. He is not the first supremely gifted athlete. Now, he's a one-of-one in his specific set of abilities, but he's not the first gifted athlete. Now, how many other athletes have you seen just in your own life? They may not have been on the same level of a LeBron James, but how many really gifted athletes have you seen in your life, in your world, who clearly didn't make the same kind of investments into themselves? They didn't have the mindset of investing in themselves the way that we've heard LeBron James does. And at the same time, those athletes clearly did not get the same kind of return on investment from their talent that they probably could have gotten had they had a different mentality. I know plenty. Now, I'm coming from the athlete world, so I was around a whole lot of athletes. I know a lot of athletes who just didn't have the right mentality about investing in themselves. And investing in yourself is not necessarily, to be clear, folks, it's not necessarily about money. Investing in yourself sometimes is just about paying attention. And sometimes it's about just having the right discipline so that you can do the things that you may not necessarily like doing, but you need to do so that you can do the things that you want to do. That's the discipline. Sometimes investing in yourself is just getting around the right people and getting away from the wrong people. Sometimes investing in yourself might just be in the moment not making the wrong decision and making a smarter decision. Those are all investments that you make in yourself. That is a mentality. It is not about how many dollars you have. Now, LeBron James can afford, at least from what we read, he can afford to invest $1 million a year into his body. Maybe you don't have that much in your piggy bank, but are you making the same mental decisions when it comes to investing in yourself? What are you taking in on a day-to-day basis? Are you taking in some nonsense that's not going to pay you back anything? Or are you taking in things that are going to make you better in the long run? Are you dealing with and associating with, whether you people that you know directly or people that you listen to and read, are you dealing with and associating with people who are giving you things that are making you better and helping you to grow? Or are you dealing with and associating with people who are giving you things that are pretty much keeping you in the same spot and or taking you backwards? What investments are you making? Remember that your 5 forms of investment are time, money, attention, energy, and focus. It's not just money. What are you doing with your time? Because every single thing that you do, you're making an investment. And that investment is either going to result in dividends or is going to result in an invoice. Dividends means you're going to get paid back in the long run based on an investment you made a long time ago. And I talk about this in my book, The Third Day. You can get that at thirddaybook.com if you don't have your copy of this book yet. Or you're going to get an invoice. You don't know what an invoice is, basically a bill. It's someone letting you know, hey, you owe us this much money and it's time for you to pay. Every investment that you make in life is going to result in a dividend or an invoice. What investments are you making? Forget about the money. Time, attention, energy, focus. Where are you putting yours on a day-to-day basis? In the long run, these will all play out and they'll all turn out exactly how I'm explaining. The challenge for us is, as human beings, sometimes we become short-sighted. We only focus on what's going on in the moment. Because in the moment, you might be making a long-term bad investment that feels good in the moment. And in the moment, sometimes you may be making a long-term good investment that is not so fun in the moment. And this is the paradox of being disciplined. This is the paradox of the very concept of this book, The Third Day, the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. Success is usually somewhat difficult on the front end. There's a lot of challenge that we have to go through on the front end, a lot of investments we have to make on the front end that are not really so fun in the moment because there's no immediate gratification. But all the fun happens on the back end. Failure in life is the exact opposite. It's usually very fun on the front end because we're making a lot of decisions that result in immediate gratification. But in the long run, when those invoices come in and we have to pay them, it's not so fun on the back end. So the question is, do you want to have your fun now or you want to have your fun later? And overall, you're going to have to make this choice. And everything that you do, you are making this choice. So asking yourself the question, based on what you believe you're worth, are you making that same calculation when it's time to invest in yourself? And are you investing in yourself as consistently as you wish to get paid? You want to get paid every day? Okay. Are you investing in yourself every day? You want people to come into your world every day? Okay. Are you investing in yourself every day? You want to be the type of person that people are talking up and talking about how great you are every day? That's fine if that's what you want. The question is, are you giving people something of value? Are you putting something of value out into the world every day? Or are you making the investments that will make sure whatever you have that is of value is going to get out there into the world every day? Are you doing it the same way that you want to be receiving it? Are you giving what you want to receive? I mean, we all know the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. So are you investing in yourself the way you want other people to invest in you? Simple question. Maybe not such an easy answer. Do you work on your game as much as you want to be recognized for your game? Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the real definition, the real meaning of knowing your worth. Number 2, we got to talk about acceptance. What I mean by this is the following. The marketplace will tell you how much it values you and at what price it values you. And we call this the supply and demand curve. Any of you who study economics are very familiar with it. The supply and demand curve will tell you what the market will bear and how much it is willing to pay based on the availability or scarcity of a certain offering. And you must accept that the marketplace is always telling you the truth about what it is that you have to offer and what it is actually worth. Now, here's the disclaimer. When you first venture out into the marketplace, and maybe even sometime later after you've been in the game, the market might tell you some things that you don't really like hearing. The market might tell you that you think you could sell this house. Any of you ever watch one of those real estate reality shows? You got the owner who wants to sell their house for $10 million, but the market, they're only getting offers for $5 million. Sometimes the market's going to tell you some things that you don't really like to hear. The market's valuation of your business and yours sometimes don't match up. Now, when this happens, you have a choice. You can choose to complain and whine about it and be upset about it, be upset at the market, be mad at the world, be mad at your real estate agent for not getting you the buyer that you want. Or you could do what I suggest you do, which is not complain and learn how to play the game. I talked about this in, let me tell you what episode that was. That was episode number 13, 14, where I told you the hustlers learn how to play the game. In episode 12, 10, don't complain, play the game. What that means is find out what the market is seeing that you are not seeing, or what the market is not seeing that you want the market to see, and then go work on your game. So you can figure out, all right, here's the way I need to present myself, or here's the way I need to change my offering, or here's what I need to say differently so that the market can start to see the same things that I'm seeing. If the market's not seeing eye to eye with the way that you see things based on your offering, then that means you need to make some adjustments, whether you adjust what you're asking for or you adjust the way you're presenting yourself so that you and the market's idea of your value can actually start to align with each other. So when I say apply, this is the second point here today, accept rather, this is the second point here today, is accept that the marketplace is always going to tell you the truth. All right, the marketplace of ideas will tell you what your ideas are worth, at least to a certain segment of the population. And the marketplace of selling is always going to tell you what your product or service is worth. And again, you can change that narrative, you can change the story anytime that you want to, but there will be some adjustments necessary to make that change. It's not just going to happen just because you said it's supposed to happen, just because you got upset, or just because you're mad at the fact that the marketplace isn't telling you what you want to hear. That's the whole reason that working on your game exists. So that if you don't like the feedback that you're getting from the market today, you can make your adjustments, and then tomorrow you can come back out and maybe get a different outcome. But understand that the marketplace will never tell you a lie. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the real meaning of knowing your worth. Number 3 is accountability. You must be willing to be as accountable as you wish to be great. If you want to be great on a level 5, then your accountability needs to be at a level 5. But if you want to be great on level 10, your accountability needs to be at a level 10. How much are you looking in the mirror versus looking out of the window? I talked about this in episode 1153. The concept of leadership is the mirror versus the window. Leaders look in the mirror, meaning they're looking at themselves and asking themselves, what can I do? What did I do? Where did I mess up? Where am I making a mistake? And whereas the people who are not leaders, they're looking out the window. They're looking at what is the rest of the world doing? What did that person do? What can somebody else do for me? The mirror always shows you the same thing. It shows you exactly who you are, flaws and all, whereas the window is always something different to choose from. I'm looking I can see out of a window right now as I'm recording. There's a lot of different things that I can focus on that are outside of myself. The problem with looking out of the window, even though it gives you a variety of things to pay attention to, is that you don't control anything that's out of the window. Nothing that you see in the window is under your control. Everything you see in the mirror is in your control. In the mirror, you only see one thing, whereas out the window, you see a million things. So if you want to be a leader, you got to be willing to hold yourself accountable, looking in the mirror and asking yourself, all right, where do I need to make some adjustments here? It relates directly to what we talked about in point number 2. The marketplace is telling you exactly who you are and exactly what you're worth. You don't like the answers, now look in the mirror and figure out what we need to do. How often are you asking yourself what the world or other people need to do versus asking yourself what you need to do? Are you willing to be held accountable by someone who is qualified to help you? Are you seeking those people out? All right, if you want to be held accountable by somebody, are you seeking out the person who can hold you accountable? When the person who you want to hold you accountable is telling you something, are you listening? Are you applying it? I just gave you a framework for being coached not too long ago. That was episode number 1912, a framework for being coached, just a few weeks ago. When you have somebody who is coaching you, I don't care if you're playing sports, if you're running a business, if you have an accountability partner, somebody who's just you want that person to help you out, get from where you are to where you want to go, and they're telling you something, they're offering you advice, they're holding you accountable for something that you were supposed to do, you didn't do it. Are you listening to that person? Are you actually knowing your worth? All right, this is part of knowing your worth. Knowing your worth is not just about, again, the things that you want. It's about the things that you need. Are you heeding and acting on the advice of the person that you went to get advice from? You read a book. Are you heeding the advice that you got from the book? You take a course. Are you applying what you learned in the course? Or are you creating excuses so that you can throw anything that you don't like in the garbage can to just keep the parts that you want? This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when we talk about knowing your worth, is when someone is offering you something that could possibly help you move forward. Understand that the things that are going to help you move forward are usually things that are outside of your comfort zone, are usually outside of what you have already been doing up to this point. Because if everything that you were doing up to this point was going to get you to the exact outcomes and exact results that you wanted in your life, you probably wouldn't need to look for any outside information, because you just have everything you need right now and it's perfect. And most of us don't fit that description. Most of us need to do something different than what we're doing right now to get to the outcomes that we want in life. And this is why I just talked about a couple days ago how constraint equals freedom and urgency in life. How the constraints that you put on yourself in life, the urgency that you give yourself, usually is going to push you outside of your comfort zone. But that's exactly what all of us need in order to maximize the opportunity and potential that we have within. It's usually not going to be just us doing what we're comfortable with, what we're already used to doing. Because if that was the case, again, we would already have all our success and you wouldn't be listening to a show called Work on Your Game. Why would you need to do work if you already know everything and everything's already perfect? None of us is already perfect. This is the whole point. And this is the crux of why many people never maximize their potential or get the full return on investment from their skill, simply because they're not willing to step outside of their comfort zone. They're not willing to give themselves constraints. They're not willing to be urgent, and they're not willing to be held accountable by anything other than what they're comfortable with. The problem is, if you're comfortable with it, you don't need accountability. You're already doing it. So let's recap today's class, which is what it really means to know your worth. You have heard this phrase many times. You've used it many times. A lot of people like to throw this phrase around, but they only use it in one direction. Today we're going to talk about the other direction. Number one, invest what you are worth. I knew this person who said, I found out my worth, so I had to stop dealing with these individuals. And this is the way most people use it. All right, I found out my worth, so I had to get a new job because they weren't paying me enough money. I found out my worth, so I stopped dating this person because they weren't treating me the way I wanted to be treated. We all understand our worth when it's time to receive. My challenge is, are you considering that worth when it's time to invest? Point number two, accept that the marketplace will tell you exactly how much it values you and how much that value is actually worth and at what price. We call this the supply and demand curve. The disclaimer with this is, when you first venture out, and maybe even later, sometimes the marketplace is going to tell you something that you don't really want to hear. But do not complain, play the game. Find out what the market is seeing and why, and then work on your game so you can change that conversation. Point number three, accountability. You must be willing to be as accountable as you wish to be great. How much are you looking in the mirror versus looking out of the window? Leaders always look in the mirror, whereas followers and people who lose in life, they look out the window. How often are you asking what the world or other people need to do versus what you need to do? Are you willing to be held accountable by someone who is qualified to help you? Are you seeking those people out? Do you listen when they tell you something? Are you heeding and acting on their advice, or are you creating excuses to throw their critiques away simply because their critiques and the advice that they're offering you is going to push you outside of your comfort zone, and the last thing you want to do is get uncomfortable and do something that you don't really feel like doing? And I'm going to close with this last hint, everybody. To get to where you really want to be in life, you're probably going to have to do some things you really don't want to do. That is the crux and the reason why many people never reach success in life, because they don't want to do anything other than what they want to do. If all you needed to do to be successful in life is do what you wanted to do, you would already have it. Now, if you're looking for someone who can hold you accountable to help you make sure that you are reaching your personal and professional goals, even if it just means someone who's going to make sure you're doing the stuff that you know you need to be doing. If it means someone telling you some things that will push you outside of your comfort zone so you can actually get somewhere in life instead of just running on that treadmill, working hard but not actually making progress, then you may be a good candidate for my 3rd-day mastermind. It's the only place where I offer direct one-on-one coaching. If you are interested in something like that, then go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. The link is down below in the show notes, and click on the button for joining the mastermind. You can hop on a Zoom call with me. We'll talk about where you're at, where you want to go. I'll tell you how I could help you, and then we'll go from there. Outside of that, send me a text message. Tell me the best insight you got from today's masterclass. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.